today's video is a comparison of this Apsara 26 premium color pencils with DOMS 24 color super soft core color pencils. First, let's start with Apsara. I think the package is quite different from what I saw on Amazon, and as soon as I opened the box, all the colors were assorted, and I think it's quite irritating to see that. I think the box is not sturdy at all. I think it's so flimsy and it came off just like that in the first day itself. I didn't expect the box to break off this easily, and also the colors are very assorted, which is so irritating for me. So I just arranged them in order, but let's all leave that aside and take a look at the pencil. The pencil actually seems quite sturdy in hand. The name of the color is actually written at the bottom of the pencil, and I think it's quite handy. And also when I hold these pencils, it's giving me a good feeling. I like holding these pencils, it is thick. And now let's swatch these colors quickly. I had high hopes for these pencils, but to be honest, they are not that intense as I wanted them to be. And the one plus point is that the nib didn't break off as much as I thought they would, and the color on the pencil, the color coating on the pencil is totally different from what the colors coming out of these pencils. And when I sharpened them, they did come to a fine point. Even though the lead was exposed in some areas, they did maintain their fine point, they didn't break, and also the lead is quite thick. Now comes the most important part, and that is blending these pencils. And when I started using this light blue color, I quickly noted that the colors are not as saturated as they seem. They are very dull, and in my initial layers, I was actually confused between all these colors because there is so much difference between the color on the pencil and the color that comes off of these leads. And since they are not saturated, I had to keep on layering a lot. So my hands were quite sore when I was done blending them. Now for the techniques that I mostly use in all of my color pencil drawings, and that is the lifting technique, and I'm using the stick eraser and I'm going to erase some of the parts. And as soon as I erased these pencils, they did come off pretty easily. I didn't struggle at all, and I did have some quite bright highlights. Now for some very fine highlights, I use this X-Acto knife, and as soon as I used it on this pencil, I was very disappointed because it didn't work at all, and as you can see, I damaged the paper. So this technique doesn't work. But these pencils did take on the fine liners and also the white gel pen. So these techniques definitely work for these pencils. Now for the white pencil, it didn't do anything, but I think it can be used for blending the colors together. And when I press really hard on these pencils, I can get some kind of a highlight. I don't know what kind of a highlight, but just some kind of a highlight. So far, my opinion on Apsara is that you can blend these pencils, but it takes a lot of time and also a lot of effort to blend them. And now let's move on to the DOMS pencils. This is a pack of 24 shades, and this is the super soft core DOMS color pencils. And the packaging actually seemed sturdy because the tin was quite hard. And also the pencils are hexagons, they are not round shaped as the Apsara pencils. And since these pencils come in these circular tins, you don't have to be disappointed because they don't have to be color coded, right? Now as far as the feeling goes, I think these pencils feel so familiar in hand because the hexagon shape is what I'm used to. I'm not used to the circular shape, so it feels familiar and sturdy, and the colors look so pretty. But the only disappointment that I have with these pencils is that the name of the color is not mentioned anywhere in the pencil. I think it would be great if they had done that, but it's not that big of a deal. Now let's swatch them. As soon as I used this metallic color, I realized that these pencils are so soft, and the silver color actually looks metallic, which is not expected at all from a cheap pencil. And as far as the golden color, it wasn't as metallic as I wanted it to, but it did feel so soft and it did feel nice. And all the colors are so soft, and the colors are so intense, and they are super saturated. And when I sharpened these pencils, I was actually expecting them to break because they're so soft. But even though I sharpened them to a very fine point, even though the lead was exposed, they didn't break at all, and I was so surprised by that. Now for the blending part, since these pencils are very saturated and soft, the colors are so rich and intense on the paper, and I didn't put lots of pressure to blend these pencils together, and I didn't layer that much. It was so quick and it was so easy to blend these pencils together. Now for the techniques, I'm using the stick eraser again for some highlights, and as you can see, this technique definitely worked because I can get some bright highlights. Now for the final highlights, I'm using the X-Acto knife, and as you can see, it came off pretty easily and I can get some very fine detailed highlights with these pencils. Now for the fine liners, I think it worked to some extent, and as far as the white gel pen, it definitely worked. Now as far as the white pencil, I was completely blown away by it because I can get some pretty decent white highlight with just the pencil. As you can see, it is just as bright as the erased highlight. This is what the Apsara pencils look like after all the swatching and blending, and this is what the DOMS pencils look like after all the swatches and blending. And now I'm going to put them to one final test, and that is I'm going to use these pencils to draw an orange, and as you can see, I've split the orange into half, and this side I'm only going to use the Apsara pencils. To be honest, I was quite disappointed with these pencils because I was expecting too much from them, and the performance was a total disappointment for me because I've watched so many YouTube tutorials saying that these pencils are the best in range, and I don't see the point in that. I don't see why they say that it is the best because there are so many pencils better than Apsara, and if you're a beginner you should never use Apsara pencils because you'll be frustrated with it. I had to layer a lot with these pencils just to get an even shading and also to get a very saturated shade of the same color because these pencils are not pigmented at all. And also I had to use lots of pressure from the initial layers itself because these pencils are very hard and the colors didn't come off as easily. So at one point of time my hands were really sore, they started to ache. But to my surprise, these pencils are not grainy, they filled up all the grains of the paper. So I think they can be good for some lighter skin tones. And now let's move on to the DOMS pencil, which is what I'm looking forward to. The color range of these pencils are so different from that of Apsara, and also the performance of these pencils are superior to Apsara. And as you can see, in just a few layers, I could get a similar saturation as that of the Apsara. I didn't do that much work, it was so quick, it was so easy. Since these pencils are so soft, they laid down their color so easily and they were so easy to blend and they were not grainy at all. As you can see, they are so saturated. The other half, the right half of the orange is so saturated than the left half. Now since these pencils are super soft and pigmented, I didn't take a lot of time to finish the other half, and also I didn't layer that much. As you can see, it was so quick and it was so easy for me to use these pencils. So for the final verdict, in my opinion, I think the DOMS pencils are so much better than Apsara. So if you're a beginner and if you want to buy a new color pencil set, then go for DOMS. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and if you found this video useful, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye everybody, take care.